moved away from home and started sort of playing like semi-professional basketball. I mean, he was, living at the dormitory of a team when he was 14. And his English is, if you haven't heard him speak yet, excuse me, his English is almost perfect. And typically people who were raised as French speakers have a heavy accent to the American ear. And he concentrated on learning English because he knew it was important in basketball. And he learned English in large part because he was traveling abroad to play with various basketball things. Like, for example, he went and played in Spain for one summer. He went and spent time training with Holger, Dirk Nowitzki's trainer, in Germany, and they communicated in English. And so like that, he's been preparing for it, and he said to Jonathan Gavoni and I that he almost doesn't think there was a better option for him than to grow up in France, because it enabled him to have a really good training from a young age, better training than our teenagers typically get, quite frankly. I mean, it's true. I mean, our teenagers at 14 don't go live at basketball. Basically, he wasn't at an academy. He was playing for a team, but he was basically, 24, he went to high school, but, and plus he believes that the French way of coaching, I mean, the France is putting forth all kinds of players into the NBA right now. There's more coming beyond Victor. So he thinks it's like, of course he's going to be biased to the way he was raised, right? But, he thinks the best way to come into the NBA is to hone your skills as a teenager in Europe and then come over. And he could have come to the US. He could have come to the US and made a lot of money, quite frankly. He could have gone to the Ignite. But he could have come to the US when he was 16 or 17, and he elected to stay in Europe. And so we're seeing players like this really, do really well. And look, I don't know how much people care about international basketball. They care about it, I guess, when the Olympics is going on. But, the Americans barely got the gold in Tokyo. And it wasn't because they played poorly. It was because they played an Australian team in the semifinals that spent 10 years building towards that game. And they got up by 15, and Kevin Durant bailed the Americans out. And in the final, France, who beat the US in the opening game of the tournament, gave the US everything that they could handle. And the French potentially are adding Wembanyama. I assume he'll be on the Paris team. And also potentially could add Joel Embiid.
Yes.
Joel Embiid has French citizenship and American citizenship.
And where are they playing those 2024 Olympics?
I'm saying in Paris. Actually,
yeah,
they're playing most of the games in Lille, which is a whole different story. An hour train ride away, which is another story for another time. But U.S. This is a thing that, there were times when the U.S. would struggle, not struggle, but when they wouldn't win, and it was like, well, they're not focused. They didn't put their act. They didn't have their act together. And in Greece in 2004, that was partially true. They definitely didn't have their act together, but there were some really good teams at that time. The Argentinians, who won the gold, were an awesome team. This is no longer the case. The teams out there are really much better, and France is one of them, and Serbia was one of them. Where they're going to have Jokic, and Greece is going to have Giannis, and and France is going to be loaded too. And they won the silver medal in the Olympics, and they won the silver medal in the Euro Cup, which is or Eurobasket last summer, which is the European Championships, which is the second toughest. In some ways it might even be tougher because the Olympics, you get some teams from Asia that qualify that are maybe not the strongest teams. Asia and Africa, the African teams I think are a threat medium to long term, but you're not necessarily getting the 16 best teams. In Europe, I mean, there's teams that don't even qualify for the Olympics because they can't qualify out of Europe,
Right.
And so, for example, Iran was in the US's group. Serbia didn't qualify for the Olympics, and Iran did because they won the Asian. They came out of Asia, and I promise you, Serbia was more of a threat to the U.S. than Iran was. Anyway.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN Plus.